Hello, everybody. My name is Jacek Bartosiak. Welcome to Strategy and Future. Today, my guest is General Phil Breedlove, the 17th SACEUR, Supreme Allied Commander, Military Commander of NATO, during the Russian invasion in 2014. Hello, General.
How are you tonight? Glad to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm fine. I hope that you're fine too. Thank you for your time. We are very happy at Strategy and Future to have you and be capable of talking to you. You know, I like to ask you the question about the prospects of war in Ukraine 2023, especially. Uh, of course, I will ask you what do you think will happen, but being more granular, what do you think is needed to make sure that the Russia is deterred finally, and some sort of victory could be achieved and defined properly as a victory for the Ukrainian side. So, what is your take on that?
Well, first, let's set the terms of reference. I join the senior leadership of my country in saying that we are going to support Ukraine. And so, as I listen and watch and read what President Zelensky says and what the people of Ukraine are saying, it's clear to me that Ukraine seeks to regain all of its country, including those parts that were taken from them in 2014 by invasion. And so this is the outcome that I would support, which is, again, what President Zelensky and the people of Ukraine want. And so, in order to accomplish that in 2023, it would be very important for Western nations to step forward and truly give Ukraine what it needs. Not only the capabilities that it needs, but the capacity of those capabilities. In the last week or two, we've heard lots of talk about tanks. Let me tell you that I am thankful for those tanks and the ones that are being offered. But the numbers are very, very, let me say it one more time, very small. And so the important part here is that it appears the policy decisions which need to be made have now been breached. And we're actually talking about giving them weapons like tanks. And now it's important that once we've got that policy decision made, that we begin to now look to the nations of the West to provide the capacity, the numbers that are required. And again, very thankful for UK stepping out and saying 14 Marder tanks. But 14 are not going to turn the tide. They really will hardly change the battlefield. But if that policy decision is followed by other Western nations, which now begin to provide Ukraine the tools it truly needs to expel Russia from Ukraine, then that is a good thing.
Yeah, but on the other hand, why do you think the military assistance is piecemeal? Is provided in installments and always with the fear of escalation, at least with such argument. Do you think it's going to change soon if we really want to achieve the Ukraine victory?
Well, I'm not popular among the West for what I'm about to say, but I believe it in my heart, and that is that we are deterred. Mr. Putin knows that if he continues to threaten World War III and nuclear attack and Armageddon, that the West will back down. This is what happened in 2008, and this is what happened in 2014. And so Mr. Putin uses all the rhetoric because it's the only tool he has that's working. His military is failing, but his rhetoric is working, and his rhetoric deters capitals of the West. I won't speak for the other capitals, but my capital in Washington is deterred. And we are incremental and very careful and sending small numbers and testing the water and all of those things because we are fearful in Washington of what Mr. Putin might do. Rather, we always worry about, are we going to provoke Mr. Putin? I like to ask, when are we going to be provoked? Russia has assembled its military. It has crossed internationally recognized borders now 3 times. It has invaded and occupied its neighboring nations, and it is weaponizing rape, torture, murder, and attacking civilian targets to conduct its war. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, when are we going to be provoked? And when will we, therefore, move forward in providing Ukraine what it really needs?
So what would have to occur for a major change in that sort of behavior, where we are being deterred, as you sort of define it?
Well, we've been through a period where we have not given Ukraine anything that would be seen as offensive. And I think this is a real problem. Look back at my nation's wars and all those nations where we have provided or allowed sanctuary for our opponents. We have had problems. From Vietnam to Afghanistan and the Fatah, we have had problems when we allow our opponents sanctuary. And frankly, we have created sanctuary for Russia. We have not only created it, but we have assured them that we will enforce it by refusing to allow Ukraine to use our weapons in an offensive manner. So right now, today, in the last 3 or 4 days, Russia has been firing into Ukraine from almost the entire compass rose, from the extreme northwest in Belarus, all the way around through the east and into the southwest of the Black Sea. Russia fires with abandon into Ukraine. And they know they will not be held accountable by the West or Western weapons because we refuse to allow Ukraine to use offensive weapons to return fire. We in the West have created sanctuary for Russia. And I think the first and most important policy decision we have to make is that we are no longer going to give Russia the sanctuary which we have created for them, and that we will allow Ukraine to return fire. Ukraine has shown incredible discipline in what they shoot at and how they shoot. They have earned our trust. So let's give them the capability to strike uniquely military targets in the surrounds in Russia. Destroy the enemy before he gets in the field in Ukraine. We are absolutely positive, at least I am, that Ukraine will not attack civilian targets. Russia is primarily, in the majority, striking civilian targets, but Ukraine has shown discipline and does not. And so I believe we should entrust them with the weapons they need to destroy the Russian forces before they cross the border, the internationally recognized border into Ukraine.
Yeah, by saying that, you mean the capability to employ the long fires, right, like ATACMS, but also the aviation, that we should allow the Ukrainians to create their own aviation using the Western aircraft, and so that they could reach far into Russia and create operational and strategic dilemmas for the Russian forces.
Striking uniquely military targets. The answer to all of what you said is yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you predict that the Russians might go on some sort of offensive once they mobilize their mobilize troops, and they contemplate that, or you think that the Russia is really undermined by what was going on the front, and it will be the Ukrainians that will be on the offensive in the coming weeks and months of the war?
I'm not. I don't have a crystal ball. Let me tell you that I do believe that if we give the Ukrainians what they require, they will seek to regain their rightful nation, all of it, the pre 2014 lines.
Mm,
But we also know that Russia has demonstrated in the past several weeks that these mobilized folks are being thrown into the battle in a haphazard way, whereby many are killed. And Russia has more and more and more and more they can throw into the battle to be chewed up. And that is going to be a problem that we need to help Ukraine face.
mm. Yeah, that is true. And how would you sort of justify the completely diverse approach and reaction of the Western allies between themselves to the issue of assistance, military assistance to the Ukrainian cause? How do you see this problem?
I didn't understand the first part of your
That
question.
there are allies that help more and there are allies that help less, and you know as we record our conversation, the U.S. Representatives are being sent to Germany to talk to Germans about their help. So what is your take on?
We have another Ramstein conference coming up, so that's more than just talking to the Germans. I believe in the next 4 days we're going to try to talk to all of our allies about better supplies. But I served in Germany 5 times. I have 8 assignments in Europe, and 5 of those were in Germany. And I have great respect for the Bundeswehr and others, but it's more than the Bundeswehr. It is the policy decisions of Germany that really set the tone for contributions in Europe. And we certainly look for and hope that Germany will step up to the task and be a big part of provisioning Ukraine to do those things that it needs to do.
Mm. And what do you think? What is the center of gravity these days in war? Whether this is the Russian logistics or the political stamina of Ukraine or the political support for
Yeah,
Ukraine.
I don't want to
What is the
sound
center of gravity?
I don't want to sound uh, too big about the United States. But what is very clear right now that one of the center of gravities is U.S. support for Ukraine. And
Mhm.
if the Russians are able to convince the American people, or if American politics turn against support for Ukraine, this will change the face of the war. And so the political dimension in America is extremely important. And I think the same can be said about Western nations in Europe. If Germany, if France, if UK, if others, Poland, were able to truly give what they can and want to give to Ukraine, this would completely change the face of this war.
Mm. And the last question, uh, what do you think year 2023 will bring to the conduct and the maybe outcome of war? What do you think? What is your
Yeah.
assessment?
So I know this: Ukraine will not give up, even without Western support. They're not going to give up. So it is my prayer, frankly, that the Western nations will step up to task and give Ukraine what it needs. If they do that, my prediction for 2023 is Russia will find itself out of Ukraine. And I think that's the rightful end of this war. Uh, if you go all the way back to 2014, when Russia first started grabbing land in Ukraine, truly, if you went back to 2008, when Russia was grabbing land in Georgia,
Mm.
we respect international borders. This war needs to end with the Ukrainian internationally recognized borders restored. That is my hope for 2023. I'm not going to give you a prediction because the prediction truly lies with the politicians of the West and what they are prepared in a policy sense to do for the Ukrainian military, and more importantly, for the men and women, sons and daughters of Ukraine.
Let's hope that the Ukrainians will not give up, as you noted. Thank you for the conversation, General. Our guest today was General Phil Breedlove, former Supreme Commander of Military Commander of NATO. Thank you, General.
Thank you.